Welcome to New Life Live with Stephen Arterburn. For 35 years, New Life has been transforming lives one at a time thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's today's host, Becky Brown.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you joined us today. And by us, I mean Laura Mangin-McDonald and J.J. West. They are both speakers at a couple of the different conferences that we have. We have J.J. who speaks at Every Man's Battle and Laura who also speaks at Restore. And they both speak at our Intimacy and Marriage workshop. And so today we thought we would have an in-depth look at marriages and the challenges that come with staying married. I mean, you know, we hear about all of the challenges that we go through, and we want it to be a great marriage. We want you to not be married and miserable. And so we're going to talk about healthy marriages. Almost every day on New Life, we get a call that involves that. The challenge of being married. We also know that a healthy marriage is the solid foundation for a healthy marriage. And the divorce rate is high for first marriage, and it gets even higher for second marriages because we just think that marrying somebody different is going to make a difference. And we learn real quick that a lot of times we marry the same person. They have a different face, a different name, but it's the same problems. And so we want marriage to be honored in the way that God had designed it until death do us part, if at all possible. And too many people live as married roommates. And so, I want you to be thinking about the fact that you can be happily married. And with the Intimacy and Marriage workshop coming to Dallas on October 20 through 22, it's the perfect time to have a deeper discussion about healthy marriages. And so, JJ and Laura, before we go to this break, what would be a challenge that you have seen in couples being happily married?
Well,
a challenge?
That's right. Just one for right now.
Plural to the 1 millionth power, right? It's like, the oxytocin that maybe was present during the dating and will begin to fade. And so that's confused, that intensity, right? It gets confused for how do we transform that into being proactive and firing up that oxytocin again, because God puts it there for a reason. I don't know, JJ, what do you think?
Yeah, and I would add, I think we come into marriage with an expectation that it's going to be for me. It's going to take care of my needs in different ways. It's going to make me feel better. And what we don't realize is that marriage was designed by God to change me, to transform me. I always use the illustration of a cauldron, right? That the more heat you apply, all the impurities rise to the surface. And so isn't it amazing that the person who you chose to live the rest of your life with can push more of your buttons than anybody else on the planet, right? It's because that relationship was designed to help me see the impurities in me, help me see how impatient I am, to help me see how demanding I am, help me see how disconnected I can live. And that's a good thing because it then allows God to do the work of healing.
It does.
And God's blueprint, right? I mean, we've got to apply His blueprint because a lot of people want to just be suffering, but not making any progress. And how do we, follow God's design in that? If not, that's where the big disconnect comes in.
I think it's harder than we think it's going to be. Like you said, Laura, we start dating and we have all the butterflies and rainbows and we think it's going to be great. And then we come into reality where we're cleaning house together, paying bills together, raising children together, and all the stuff from our history starts coming in. It is a cauldron. It's a cauldron. Exactly, JJ. We're going to talk more about this, and we're going to hear from some people who have done the work and have experienced the new life, the transformation in their marriage. We'll be right back after this.
My husband was involved with pornography addiction.
He was unfaithful. I called the wedding off.
He stepped out on the marriage and ended up having a child.
The Restore Workshop is designed for a woman dealing with a man's sexual addiction issues.
My husband is a recovering sex addict. There were strip clubs, other ladies.
If you've been affected by betrayal, an emotional or physical affair, or pornography, the Restore Workshop will equip you with support and tools to help you through.
Restore has empowered me and has given me the tools to work through my anger, work through my pain, work through my confusion, and help me realize that I am worthy.
Being here and being surrounded by people who get it has given me my power back.
The Restore Workshop is coming to Washington, D.C. November 3rd through the 5th. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE to find out more. That's 1-800-639-5433 or online at newlife.com.
Thank you, Restore. You have changed my life forever.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We have a special focus on today's show. I am joined by Laura Mangin-McDonald and JJ West, who are speakers at our Intimacy and Marriage Workshop. And, you know, one of the questions that we always ask is, why do couples continue to have the same fight over and over again? And I have a testimony from one of the men who joined us. Go to number 3 there, Terry.
I remember the words of a wise man in my group, and he said, you know, we're always getting in our own way. And that's been true for me. I'm always expecting my wife to go first. I'm expecting her to apologize first or initiate something first. And I tell myself, I should do this, I should do that. On Friday night, we got into an argument, and I stayed in the car outside for 2 hours until I got out of my way. I knew what the right thing to do was to go. You know, I know this stuff, but it's so hard to do. I hear it, I read it, whether it's in church and books and counseling with my therapist. It's just so hard to do. My biggest takeaway was to just get out of my way, do what I know is the next right thing to do, and go first. Don't wait for her.
Wow. I'm telling you, how many times do we hear those kind of conversations? JJ and Laura, why do couples continue to have the same fight over and over again and maybe sit in the car for 2 hours, whether they're at a workshop or at home?
Right. Well, like you said, we get in our own way. And part of the reason we get in our own way is that we're not even aware of the things that are driving our behavior and our responses to the other person. We haven't done the work to identify why it is that I keep overreacting to this set of circumstances or the way she says this, that, or the other thing. So part of the work is in me being able to look at my life, the family I grew up in, the circumstances that I went through that shaped the way I do relationship. And that's why, as you said, second and third marriages have an even higher divorce rate, because I take me to the next relationship. That's why the next relationship looks just the same as this relationship, because I keep repeating the same pattern, and I will keep doing that if I don't ever look at what are the forces that are driving that response to begin with.
You know, JJ, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I call that, you know, a different face, same place. And we just keep on repeating that pattern. But the insidiousness of our unresolved issues is we point the finger at the person across from us, thinking, oh my gosh, you're the reason I feel so crazy, when probably 80%, at least 80% of our response and triggers is because of what's happened behind us. And that's where we need to understand our heart, because it records every nanosecond of life before we even had language in our mother's womb. And that has been, as a Christian therapist, that has been the hardest thing for me to get people to really buy into, because they're going, oh no, that doesn't affect me anymore. And like you said, JJ, they don't know that it's affecting them. It's in their hard drive, that it's not something cognitive they come up with. It's a bodily, you know, the sensation. It's the neuroscience of, you know, I'm being triggered by you. You are causing me, and I need to find someone else who gets me. Right?
Well, you know, one of the things that the two of you will talk about in depth are the attachment styles, because what we know for sure is that people, when they understand where they've come from, like you both have referred to, they can then have insight into how they do connect with their spouse. So,
Yeah.
without, obviously, you can't go through all of the attachment styles, but let's just do a high level. Tell people what we're talking about when we talk about attachment styles and maybe a couple of the different kinds.
Sure. So there's two main categories, if you will. There's a secure connection and an insecure connection or insecure connector, right? So if I've learned how to do relationship in a really healthy way, I can be a secure connector. But most of us are insecure connectors, and we're insecure in a number of different ways. So there's the avoider. That's the person who doesn't even know how to be fully present with someone and how to have an authentic connection. That's usually because that was never present in their own home. No one ever asked them about what they were feeling or really showed them how to express their emotions appropriately. There's a pleaser, and that's usually a person who grew up in a very anxious, angry home, and they were constantly looking for ways to try to set people at ease, to make people feel good. And so their main way of relating to the world is, how can I make sure that you're happy with me? I do whatever it is that you need. So they lose their own voice. Then you've got the vacillator. This is a person who grows up in a home where connection was intermittent. Either the parent was not available all the time to offer that, or it was only offered when the parent wanted it. And so that what happens there is they grow up with this strong desire for connection, but they the reality that they live in is so far from the goal, the dream, that they're constantly frustrated with the way the world is working around them, and they're constantly rehearsing and reviewing. They're rehearsing what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to say this, and they're going to say that, and then they're reviewing afterwards what did happen. And then there's the final category is the chaotic, and this shows up either as a controller, someone who is physically, emotionally, verbally trying to control you, or the victim. I don't have any say in my life. Everything around me makes my life happen. Everything around me tells me who I am and what I do.
I'm
In a
sure
nutshell.
after yeah, in a nutshell, I'm sure after you heard that whole list, you're like, that's my spouse. I see where my
Mm-hmm.
spouse is, but that's not the key. Laura, what is the
No.
key as you move forward in this process?
Well, the key is self awareness, because
There you go.
the more self aware I am, the more other aware I can be. And I can't be other aware until I'm first self aware, which is Proverbs 4, 23 coming to full fruition, that guard your heart above all else because it determines everything you do. And so when we can get couples in, especially intimacy and marriage, and for them to have this understanding of going, oh, if I start taking care of my side of the street, and then I can have empathy for my spouse instead of, responding to the trigger with pulling away or anger or criticizing, condemning, complaining, I can go, wow, I get you. That when that happened to you as a little girl, when that happened to you as a little boy. And I mean, when we're up there, we watch the light bulbs just going off. It is freedom to understand this. And it will change the trajectory of your life. And the most common, to add to what JJ was saying on the brief overview, is the vacillator and the avoider are the most common couples that married. And it's like oil and water. And it's just so painful for both of them, right? But anyways, that self-awareness is the key. It's the game changer.
So, you guys, we hear about couples all the time in this dynamic where they're having the same fight over and over again. And, what is something, if you are that couple and you're listening right now, besides coming to intimacy and marriage, which obviously we want you to, what is one thing a spouse can do, whoever, husband or wife listening, that they can stop this chain reaction that occurs, having the fight over and over again?
Well, honestly, I think that.
Go ahead, Laura.
Oh, go on, JJ. Go on.
No, you go.
No, you go. I honestly think that self-awareness.
That's a fight we're going to have over and over again.
Yeah. because we're both so nice, right?
Yeah.
But if we don't have, without the self-awareness, it's what happens is people really try very hard to bite their lip, to wait, but then they pop out like a jack in the box. So I would encourage everybody to go to howwelove.com and to take the assessment that will give you some insight into your attachment style, where you can begin to gain that self-awareness and then have your partner take it. And wow, that right there is so validating for so many people.
Well, and I also think I want to hear from you, JJ, but I want to think about what is the first thing you can do in the moment. Because while going to see what your attachment style is very important, I don't think they're going to take that minute to go and look it up. But JJ, what would you say if you're in the throes of the battle? What would you say?
Right. So turn the camera around on yourself. So I'm in the argument and I know what she's about to say and I'm about to say this in response and then she's going to say that. Instead, turn the camera around on what is it that I'm feeling right now. Ask yourself. This is actually blueprint right out of James chapter 4 verses 1 through 3. What is it that I want right now that I'm not getting? Is it something that God's allowed me to want? Is it something that is good for me, or is it a selfish desire? If it's a selfish desire, I need to let that go. But if it's not, if it's a legitimate desire, have I asked for it? Have I communicated it to my spouse in a way that they can understand? Right. So if I walk through that process, that will slow down the argument. First of all, it's going to change the dance pattern. So if we've been doing the waltz and suddenly you go into a samba, somebody's got to change, right? Like you can't keep doing two different dances. So if you can do that, if you can stop that process, and then you can also ask yourself the question: have they asked me for something that I have not provided to them? Right? If I can do that as opposed to just I'm going to go through the script, that can actually change the whole dynamic right there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Laura, you were talking about. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, something on the fly to implement with the couples is right there, go, help me, Jesus. And I'll ask them to hold hands and go, Jesus, we don't want to destroy each other. We need your help. And that kind of puts the brakes on of instead of going down the pain drain together. And really, I get a good response, from my couples for that. It's because it's like, I'm not alone, because it feels so overwhelming. Why does this person always misunderstand me? Why do they always, rearrange my words when I'm trying to connect with them? Because that's what you usually hear from both spouses. So we can go, I can't. Would you be willing? Can we hold hands and go ask Jesus to help us right now? And if someone can rise up and do that, it's a game changer.
Do you know, along that same line, many times I have asked couples when they are talking about a struggle, I will ask them, how are you praying about this? And, it's shocking to find out how many are not even praying about it. So
Right.
even to consider, maybe that's the first step to disrupting the cycle. And it's not, you don't necessarily have to be praying, Lord, fix them, because you can pray that. But I think maybe even more, Lord, show me, what is it that I am doing, that I am contributing to this cycle that's going on in our marriage. The other part about this too, and just briefly, I'll start with you, JJ. When we talk about couples fighting, we sometimes forget about the audience in the house and what this is doing to the children that are seeing this. JJ, can you speak into that just a little bit?
Yeah, two things there. If there is a violent interaction, I don't just mean physically violent, I'm talking about verbally violent, emotionally violent. If that's the case, that really does need to be not in front of children because of the impact that that's going to have on children. I don't think that we have to hide our children from every disagreement, every conflict, because I think it's actually healthy for kids to see two parents be in conflict, but work their way through conflict in a healthy way and move toward resolution. But that's not the case if there's violence there. That really does need to be outside of uh, the the view and hearing of the children. And I would include in that, when I say violence, I'm also talking about language that tears down the other person. So if in your disagreements, in your fights with your spouse, if you're tearing that other person down, you need to be very careful not to use those words and that language in front of your children, because they're soaking that up like sponges.
Well, and you're showing them an example of what to look for in their future relationships. And it's so shocking when parents hear that, because they think, well, no, this is because of my spouse. And it's like, well, but you learned that somewhere too. And it's so the pain just continues on and on. We're going to continue after this break talking about the importance of really getting to the core issue to have a great marriage. We want to help you understand, why do we keep doing the same thing over, expecting different results. We want you to have a strong marriage. We want you to have strong families, and we want that next generation to see a good example. We'll be right back after this.
The Life Recovery Connection Conference is online Saturday, October 7th. The topics addressed aren't just for people with alcohol or drug addictions, but for anyone who wants to move from the pain and the struggles of the past towards a healthier and happier future. Steve Arterburn, Becky Brown, and other experts will present new material on topics like reclaiming your calling, small group best practices, self-care, discipleship, sponsoring and mentoring, understanding and loving an addict or alcoholic, the history of the 12 steps, and much more. Plus, there are interactive breakout groups led by the conference presenters. To register or to find out more about the New Life Recovery Connection Conference, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverygroups.com. Get help to successfully walk your recovery journey, as well as go alongside others in need of help. 1-800-639-5433 or liferecoverygroups.com.
I've been listening to New Life for many years, gone to a few workshops. I want to support a ministry that helps people connect with God and with others and gives them the tools to help transform their lives.
You can help New Life Live stay on the air by joining Club New Life today. When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, we'll send you the new member thank you gift of all 8 100-day devotionals, including 100 Days of Healing, 100 Days from Freedom from Shame, and 100 Days of Freedom from Anger. There are also ongoing benefits like the monthly Club New Life CD or download, access to the Club New Life video library, quarterly resources, free shipping on purchased resources, discounts on workshops, and quarterly online meetings with Steve. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Support Club New Life, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We are doing a special focus on marriage because we believe it is so important to have a healthy marriage. We hear callers all the time call, and, with all the struggles that they have, one of the biggest challenges that we hear, and we just had a call the other day from someone who said, I want to go, but my husband doesn't want to go. But take a listen to this testimony, and we'll talk about this after this.
I just want everybody to know that I came here I didn't want to be here. I always felt that, I don't need to go to a workshop and hear other people's problems. I have enough problems of my own. But I'm glad that somehow, God was in my wife's side and not mine.
Boy, I tell you, sometimes you do have to listen to your wives when you hear them request that. But JJ, what are those specific and common fears that men have about going into a workshop, whether it's this one or others, but specifically intimacy and marriage?
Yeah. So there's shame that I can't fix this on my own. I mean, as men, we're told over and over again that our identity is wrapped up in what we do and what we can accomplish. And so to admit I can't do this feels like my shame is going to be on full display. There is the fear of having to be that intimate with other people, to share our problems with other people. And then I think there's also I don't know if I would call it a fear, but there's at least is a concern about, is this even going to help, or is this going to be a
Mhm.
waste of time and money? And I think a lot of guys think that, oh, this isn't really going to be useful, so why are we investing so much money or so much time in this? And I will say to that, we see over and over again God work miracles in people's lives at these workshops. And you would actually end up spending far less by going to the workshop than you will spend on your on the lawyers on a divorce. You'll spend far less. Even it condenses counseling. I mean, you're going to get essentially about 2 months worth of counseling condensed into a weekend. So it's actually
Easy.
cost wise, it actually makes sense to do that. Um, and
Mhm.
so the workshop ends up being far better than you fear, because when you're going to the workshop, yes, you are going to experience some intimacy, but it's in a safe place and it's in a safe
Yes.
way. You're not going to be shamed for what brought you to the workshop.
So, JJ, one other thought about that is I know that there are some men that don't want to take direction from their wife in this regard. The caller that I'm thinking of is she asked him over and over again, "We need to go to counseling. We need to do something,"
Yeah,
and he was like, "I'm fine, thank you very much. This is your problem."
yeah,
What would you
yeah,
say to that man who's listening, or maybe even his wife who's listening,
yeah.
and the resistance is strong?
Yeah, I would say to that man, brother, your pride is directing and ruining your life, and I say that in love, because man, I've been there. There's been so many times in my life where my pride to accept help and direction from others, namely my spouse, it feels like, oh, it's this, I'm being weak as a man, or I'm not leading, or I don't. Somehow it's indicating that I don't know what to do, and that pride is killing us. And so I would say, brother, for the sake of your own life and your own peace and your own joy, let go of your pride and listen to those around you, and specifically your wife, who God designed to be a helper for you, to come alongside you and help you in the same way that the Holy Spirit comes alongside and helps us. And so if I'm willing to listen to the Holy Spirit, why would I not be willing to listen to my spouse?
Mm, I love that. And Laura, what would you say, if somebody is struggling with, seeking help, what is a way to get over that obstacle?
Gosh, well, to just validate how scary it is that, yeah, you're taking a risk, but much like what JJ said, the risk we're taking pales in comparison to the connection and validation that will happen. And something we specifically do at Intimacy and Marriage that makes it so successful, and I will just throw a plug in there that Intimacy and Marriage saved my marriage years ago. I'm the therapist that had to submit and go, I need help, and my husband too. It changed the trajectory of our lives for sure. However, what we do at Intimacy and Marriage is we structure the setting so that it's safe, because until we feel safe, we can't open up, which is why these perpetual core pattern arguments are blowing the people up in their home. Every time they get into that core pattern, and then there's this gridlock, and then I don't feel safe. I'm backing up and I'm defending myself, and that's what each person is doing. So with the structured setting we have and explaining the attachment style and how they'll get to take that into a group, we present in the main session, take it into a group and their breakout, they're validated. Oh, I'm not alone. Oh, you experience this too? It's amazing. Amazing.
Well,
It's a lifesaver.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I love that you identified the safety. We got
Mhm.
you. If you make the decision
Yeah.
to seek help and come to Intimacy and Marriage, you are not going to be mishandled. We're not going to pit you against each other. And if
Mm-mm.
you're struggling, we're going to be there to help you walk through that. We're going to talk a little bit further about some of the reasons why women specifically give up hope. They've asked so many times for their husband to do something. They've tried everything, and they feel like they've reached the end of their rope. We've got hope for you. We'll come right back.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit it's addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. Chris Williams on coaching.
Oftentimes I get asked, what is the difference between therapy and coaching? The biggest difference between the two is that a therapist is going to be looking for a diagnosable mental health condition, whereas a coach is going to look at a particular issue and help a person work through that.
If you need a coach, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been trained and screened with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
If you're looking at an issue in your life that you just kind of want to change, whether it be your weight or leadership or other areas of behavioral patterns, check out coaching. There can be some really, really helpful things for you.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 and talk to us about getting a New Life coach. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We are focusing on marriage for this show today. And whether you are married or not married, you know somebody who's married. And I think if you're in any relationship at all, you're going to see that there are some common fears that we have when we run into trouble. But specifically, we're going to talk about why are women so just exhausted after they've tried over and over again. We're going to listen to this testimony and we'll have some discussion.
This weekend was the last hope for our marriage. Being only married for a little short of 3 years, we were ready to call it quits because of the volatile nature of our relationship was only damaging ourselves and our son. With addiction, betrayal, and an emotional affair, and a myriad of childhood trauma polluting our union, it appeared impossible to ever be able to make it work. Here at this workshop, we had our first ever conversation without yelling, blaming, and accusing. We were able to tap into the forgiveness that we both so desperately needed from the prompting of the hilarious Steve. I personally was okay with the fact that I will never want to be intimate with my husband for the remainder of what I thought would be a short marriage. This weekend proved otherwise, as we were able to not only be intimate again physically, but emotionally and spiritually in ways I never thought possible. God took our dead marriage of dry bones and used New Life's amazing and dedicated counselors, therapists, and participants to speak life and hope into a seemingly impossible situation. This weekend was nothing short of a miracle.
And we love miracles. I love to hear how God is working through the work that we do at the workshop. And you know, Laura, you have worked with so many women who have been right in that place where she was.
Mhm.
And, you know, how can we help women who have given up hope to see a future where things are better?
Wow. Well, that testimony right there really articulates the process of going from hopeless to having hope. But the biggest thing is for that female, what I think we women have a tendency to do, Becky, is we go all out. We go full throttle and we pour out and we pour out and we pour out until all of a sudden we're laid out. You know, we can't take it anymore. And then by the time those women get in, they're like, no, I'm done. I don't want to, I'm done. I am not going to put myself out there anymore. And to validate, well, of course you feel that way. We get you. You have every right to feel this way. But if you will just take this risk, we can promise, and it's not our promise, it's God's promise, that when we follow his blueprint for safety, how do we get to a place of being safe again, to where we can share, to where we can open up? And it's like, I always, even if in my office, I'll go behind that woman, I'll put my hands on her shoulders and go, I'm for you. You can do this. You can say this. You have a right to say this. What you have to say matters. And then teaching that man the same thing, that how, teaching how to listen to that lady. And it works because it's God's, it's his blueprint.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think that when you think about the women that you literally put your arm around and say, you can do this, it's giving them a new vision of the hope that can happen when we connect, when we reconnect. I always say nobody gets married thinking, you know what, I hope this is miserable. Hope that we get into arguments all the time. Hope that we don't enjoy life. I mean, no one gets married. No one walks down that aisle thinking, boy, this is going to be a train wreck. Although some people do have that apprehension, and we address those too, because sometimes even the apprehension is based in what our history is. And JJ, when we talk to couples at Intimacy and Marriage who maybe they were fearful walking down the aisle, maybe they are keeping secrets, what are some of the ways that we address those kind of issues at Intimacy and Marriage?
Well, one of the ways we address that is by looking at why would I go into a relationship with that level of fear? Probably because that's what I was used to. Probably because that's how I've learned how to do relationships. That in my mind, what's normal is that relationships are filled with fear, as opposed to relationships are a safe place, the safest place for me to be me. And so we want to look at what are the factors that led to me viewing this as a normal way to relate to one another, or relate to others, I should say. And then the idea of, where I'm in the relationship and it seems hopeless, and so I've given up hope. One of the things that we have to remind ourselves is that God is bigger than all of our brokenness. God is able to heal in ways that we can't even fully comprehend on the front side of the healing. The Israelites, when they're standing in the desert with the Egyptian army barreling towards them and the Red Sea behind them, they weren't thinking, well, I bet you God's going to come through for us here. I'm sure he's probably going to part this Red Sea. No, they were terrified. They had no idea what was going to happen, but God was able to rescue them through a way that they couldn't see at the time.
I love that. And one of the things that we help couples with that hope is we give them some practical tools. We're not just telling them, hey, it's going to get better, and just try harder. As Steve always says, trying harder just makes trying harder. And so we just we give them some practical steps, and one of those ways is the comfort circle. And Laura, I know we have helped so many couples just have a better conversation. Just give us the highlights about what the comfort circle actually is.
Well, the comfort circle is a genius design. It's God's design. Kay and Mylon perfected, right? Where I have an opportunity to speak, and then the other person has an opportunity to speak. We have a listener and we have a speaker. And the listener is writing down everything and repeating back, here's what I hear you saying. I say that it puts guardrails on the highway for us, because what happens when the couples get there, they have not had any guardrails, and every conversation would end in a wreck. They would go down the pain drain. And so what this does is, when the listener asks questions, to give me how you're feeling, and then it walks it through, and then it connects us with our attachment style, how we attach, and triggers that developed when we were younger that we're not aware that's playing out in our current, situations with each other. And it's amazing. I can have a couple come in my office, or we see them at, the workshop, and they are just like, no talk, so mad. But once they will be willing, and willingness is the key word, to participate in this structured conversation, it is amazing because it works. It's God's design. I'm seen, heard, and understood.
And it's safe. It's the first time that they've had a safe conversation. That's kind of what the testimony was referring to. Another topic that we cover is where we separate the men and the women into two different rooms, because there's a topic that is very prevalent in marriage but never gets talked about, and it's sex. And so when we divide the men and the women, it's to give them an opportunity to hear some truth, and to also have a place where they can ask certain questions. Now, JJ, obviously you are leading the men in that breakout session. And what are some of the topics that you bring up with the men so that they are better equipped as they connect with their wife?
Yeah, so one of the main things we look at is the fact that for men, we tend to approach the topic of sex as primarily driven by anatomy and performance, rather than emotion and connection. And so we want to flip that script for guys and learn how to be great lovers, not by focusing on anatomy and performance, but by focusing on connecting to her heart. What is it that she is feeling and trying to communicate with me? What is it about me that I can be vulnerable with her? That for a lot of guys, that's a real game changer, because they've been taught by, families that they grew up in, and by every TV and movie that they've ever watched, that sex is really more about physique and performance than it is about my heart and connecting with the other person.
And Laura, I know that you address the women, and what are some of the things that we address there? Just briefly.
One, we clarify that sexual issues aren't about sex. Sexual issues are about emotional intimacy. And so it's the self-awareness of what is emotional intimacy, because good sex is rooted in good emotional intimacy, and that women do have a voice, and it's not just a holy hookup. We have it's a coming together to share my heart with you, but that has to be taught. It is a learned behavior, emotional intimacy.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we'll continue to talk about this. It's our goal that couples will have intimacy, not just physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We want you to be one. That is God's blueprint. That's what you've been saying all along. We can help you. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We have been focusing on marriage for this entire show, and it's because we get so many calls, and we've done intimacy and marriage as a workshop for many years, and we've seen so many couples be helped through this workshop and through the help that they got at the workshop. One of my favorite testimonies we're going to hear from now, and then we'll have a little bit more discussion about this.
I originally come from India. I'm sure my accent gave it away. I grew up with a lot of pornography addiction. It was prevalent there, and I'm entering this marriage assuming that watching porn is just normal for men and marriage is going to fix it. I mean, you just get sex anytime, no restrictions, and that's the solution. But little did I know how naive I was. As soon as I got married, my behaviors, my actions did not change. And I came to my senses that I need to fix myself. That's when I started seeking some answers. I read the book, Every Man's Battle, which said, hey, there's also a workshop we do, which is called Every Man's Battle. And so I went to the Every Man's Battle workshop. And in all transparency, I am not of Christian faith. But I wanted to go in because here are a group of guys and girls, they're trying to teach something, and I want to learn what's behind there. What are they trying to teach? There's something valuable there. And I, in fact, even before I registered for the workshop, I called in and I checked, hey, I want to make sure I'm not a Christian. Can I still come in and attend? And the lady was very sweet, kind. She said, yes, you're welcome. I mean, it's Christian-based, you should know that, but anybody's welcome. And I show up there, and my whole definition of sexuality was so distorted in my head. He just put it all together. He fixed my head. And then we decided that a good next step for us is to come here to this workshop as a couple and learn what is marriage, what's the right way to do it. And you all have no idea how grateful I feel for what you have done for me, for my family, for my marriage, and for my future. And I don't think I can ever say enough words or do enough for you to say how grateful I am.
I tell you, I'm grateful. I have seen so many lives changed. I was there that day that he shared. And, JJ, let's start with you because he mentioned going to battle. And, it's amazing to me how many men don't realize the impact that porn or lust or I know that they know that the affairs are impacting their marriage, but literally don't understand how it is changing the way that they relate to their spouse. What would you say to the men that may have this secret that they don't want to risk exposing, and so then they just don't go? They don't do anything about their marriage.
Yeah, we don't go because we think that we're going to be rejected. We think that we're going to be judged harshly. But nothing could be further from the truth. When you get to the workshop, you are going to find a safe place. You're going to find other brothers who understand and are walking the path with you. And that's the thing is we have to be. It is scary. It's hard to be vulnerable with others, whether that's at the Intimacy and Marriage Workshop, the Every Man's Battle Workshop, Restore, any of the other workshops that we do. It's hard to be intimate. It's scary to be intimate. But on the other side of that is this sweet connection and this ability to live in reality that we just simply can't experience when we're living in our secrets.
And, just like what the testimony, when he was talking about, you people have no idea. And that's what I would say to those of you who are fearful of, the process. Laura, we do groups at every one of our workshops. And so that means that you not only are listening to good speakers, but then you go into these breakout groups, and there are very few places that you can go to a couples group. And of course, I'm partial. It's one of the most powerful things, but speak to the couples who are thinking, I don't want to be in a group with other people. Like, what is that all about?
Well said all of us, right? Who wants to, as a therapist who talks about vulnerability, I'm going to go, let me just tell you how jacked up I am in some areas, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just real life. But it's when, like JJ was saying, when we take that risk and we open up, it makes me think of the Jordan, right? That it was the worst time of the year to go. They would have had totally legit excuses. Let's just wait until this water dies down. But they had to touch their foot in the water before it rolled back. Mm. And one of the most beautiful parts of that passage, I think it's in Joshua 3-ish, but it's where the Lord says, I know you haven't been this way before, right? And if we will take that risk, and what have you got to lose? Because I promise you can't be much more miserable. The fear of exposing yourself in the group can't really be much more miserable than the daily grind of not being seen, heard, or understood by your spouse. So for those who do take that risk and put their foot in the water, they cross the Jordan on the worst time of the year and get over to the other side. And so that's my encouragement that I say to others.
In the couples groups, one of the things that I've experienced, because I've led many of these groups over the years, is that couples find out they are not the only ones that have trouble. I know it's just shocking. But I heard one attendee who said it was sort of like watching a movie. I went in there thinking that I was just going to keep my mouth shut. I was going to let everybody go before me, and I wasn't going to say anything. And he said, all of a sudden, this couple across from me starts talking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my story. That's us. Exactly. We are doing the same thing. And it connected them in such a way that it caused them to be able to open up more and more. And they find out that in that vulnerability is the healing. JJ, you have led many groups over the years, just as Laura has too. And so one of the challenges for couples is to find that connection in with each other, but also to be free to go into a group session. And so when you think about the couples and their connection in the group, what would you say is the greatest thing that you've experienced as you've seen these couples connect?
Yeah, they connect to each other, right? The spouses, but they connect to the other members of the group. Like they form these really deep friendships that continue on after the workshop. And the reason why is we call it a workshop. It's not a lecture series. The work is done in the groups. And so you're sharing in the battle with each other as you're in your breakout groups. And that forges some deep, deep friendships. So I've got couples who they continue to call each other years after the workshop. They continue to be in each other's lives years after the workshop because of the intimacy that was built in that process group.
I love that. We have had so many testimonies that we've shared today, and I think of couples way down the road that I know personally who have participated in intimacy and marriage. One in particular, he was stuck in sexual addiction. It was ravaging his family and, just destroying both of their lives. He did the work. They ended up going, he went to Every Man's Battle, and then she went to Restore. They went to Intimacy and Marriage, and their marriage is closer than ever. And this is a decade, I think, or more. Your life can be different. Your marriage can be healed. We want to help you. The three of us will see you at the next Intimacy and Marriage. Wherever you are, you know that you can make this choice and make an impact on your marriage and on your family legacy. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, listeners. I hope to see you.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Hi, thank you for watching New Life Live. You know, New Life Live is a Christian counseling program where we deal with the hard questions about life, relationships, kids, free choice, freedom of will, whatever. It's all right there on New Life Live every day, every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you want to call into the live broadcast, you can find the schedule on newlife.com or click the social media link right below. You can see every episode of New Life Live on the New Life YouTube channel. Watch it with a friend, watch it later. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you'll never miss another episode. So if you want to listen on the go, download the app. The link is right below. And I hope if you need some information, if you want to get some help, you'll call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And I'll see you next time.